Wanna talk? So let's talk. Here. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
Good evening and welcome. It's Talk to Solomon time. Thanks so much for joining us. That's me, Stan Solomon, and my co-host,
Chief Steve.
Former Police Chief Steve Davis. Our guest, the Executive Director of Gun Owners of America, Larry Pratt. Larry, good evening.
And a good evening to you all.
Thank you for joining us. Things must be jumping up and down there in D.C. as the weather is hot. The Democrats are running cold, and the Republicans, well, they haven't figured out how to run anything yet.
Right. That about sums it up. I guess the show's over.
All right. Let me ask you, Larry. I sent you a story, hopefully you had a chance to peruse it, about a 14-year-old Phoenix boy who was at home taking care of his younger brothers and sisters. Somebody rang the door bell. He went down, didn't recognize the person, as instructed by his parents. He didn't answer the door. Then he heard a crashing sound and saw that somebody was kicking in the door and that they had a gun. So being probably a Republican, he
Sounds like it.
took his younger brothers and sisters upstairs, put them in their room, grabbed his father's handgun, stood at the top of the stairs. When the guy walked in, brandishing his gun, he hit him a couple times. The guy did survive, unfortunately.
Alas.
So they're now trying to see if they can save him long enough to hang him, I guess. And of course, the Democrats have come out with a statement saying what this boy should have done is gone along with the people breaking in, died correctly.
You're making this up.
Oh, no, I know. No, I'm really not making it up, but they didn't put it in writing. But that's their thought process. You have an obligation to be a victim so they can
Right.
start more programs.
Right. And of course, they have argued for years and years and years and years that we should keep making it, raising the age when somebody can have a gun. And so here you have a gun that obviously was readily accessible to a 14-year-old. And, somebody could get hurt with that, of course. And it worked kind of the way it was intended by Dad, it sounds to me. Sounds like he'd had a few conversations with that lad. And so now I don't want you to touch it unless there's something bad going on. Well, I think Dad would agree. That was something pretty bad.
Well, I'm sure the socialist left are trying desperately to find a way to charge the parents with allowing these children to be in access to this gun.
Right. They'll figure a way.
Well, in Arizona,
you working on it now.
in Arizona, they have a real problem. But in New York or in Illinois, that boy and his younger brothers and sisters would probably have been killed or raped or both. And the liberals would be very comfortable with that because they would then pass a law making it illegal to kill and rape young kids. Oh, wait a minute.
Right.
That's already illegal, and it doesn't stop the losers on the left from doing exactly that. But I thought that story was interesting, along with the story about a lady whose son was killed by an illegal and given a bill to pay for cleaning up the street where her son's blood was spread all over it.
Seems like that bill ought to go to Janet Napolitano, who doesn't want to close the border. We've been thinking about how we could beef up the border at Gun Owners of America. It was kind of tangential, but we were thinking, okay, maybe this is the time we can finally get rid of the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. They've gone and been complicit in the murder of some 300 people. We know that they're decent agents, the street cops, if you will, but this was a program thought up by the lawyers and the bureaucrats. So why not just get rid of ATF, take the actual cops at ATF and assign them to the Border Patrol along with that part of the budget that was paying their salaries to begin with at ATF. Doesn't that sound like a win-win?
Sounds like it to me. If only we could use, certain individuals as decoys. But that's probably not going to be the way it is. Let's go to Holder, because I think that's the big issue. ISSA is expecting bipartisan support for the contempt vote later this week. What's the buzz there?
I think he's putting it accurately. We don't know who they are, at least I don't know who they are, but there are a number of Democrats in the House that evidently come from somewhat conservative districts, and they want to make sure they get this one right, because the districts tend to be Republican leaning, and they barely squeaked in. And I'm thinking of one, Mark Kritz in Pennsylvania. If he were to vote against impeachment or against the contempt citation, I don't think he would need to bother campaigning back home. That would be it. So we'll see some of these folks added to the rolls. And obviously, Nancy Pelosi has to cut them some slack, because she's not going to become the majority by helping to get rid of some of her guys. So not that I think she's going to become the majority. I think her stock is going to continue to fall on the political stock exchange operating on November 6th. But this is something that, let's assume that they have the vote and it prevails. It'll be in spite of Boehner rather than with his help. ISSA has had to do this after a tug of war, and we're beginning to find out, well, that's why the hearing took so long before it was scheduled. And the leadership has not communicated to Holder by signing the letter that ISSA sent over to tell Holder this is it or else. And so none of the top three Republicans in the House wanted to be identified with playing tough with Holder. Don't want to play tough with a guy that's complicit in the murder of over 300 people. As the Bible says, the mercies of the wicked are cruel indeed. And that's what it seems to me we have here. But ISSA has gone and done this, and so hopefully he would have on Thursday. Oh, and by the way, they scheduled initially to have the vote on Tuesday. Then they moved it to Thursday. Now, what other major event is supposed to occur on Thursday?
The healthcare
decision. Sir. And so I think Boehner saw this as a way to hopefully keep some of the air out of the room for Fast and Furious and kind of put it in the shadow of healthcare. And he's probably right. That's probably what will happen. The media will be happy to have an excuse. Win, lose, or draw, the media would like to divert attention from our government's mass murder program. That's not too cool to go into an election with. So the next step would still probably get some publicity before the election, and they won't have any more Obamacare decisions to announce when the next step might be taking place. Namely, lawyers from the House go over to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia and, acting as a prosecutor, file their complaint, their contempt of Congress citation with that court, and press the charges and insist on a trial. And assuming that all happens, and the judge may, although it's a liberal court, but the judge might tell Holder, cough him up. Well, if he doesn't, obviously that would be appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals, where we would have a rather better shot of getting a pro-American judge. And at that point, if the judge were to decide, this is still probably before the election, that Holder is in contempt of court and so rules, that's jailable.
Well, you're in law enforcement for 10,000 years, Chief. Is it possible for a political body like Congress to get a prosecutor to act, or can they go around that prosecutor?
They can appoint their own prosecutor. They can appoint a special prosecutor to investigate this. So they have a lot of power. Congress has a lot of power. They can do a lot of things.
And that would be the lawyers that already work for the House that could be assigned that task, or as the chief suggests, maybe they might call on somebody else. But it looks like, from everything I've been able to pick up, this could happen, and it could happen in that way. Now, Boehner, I think, he doesn't realize that the race card has expired and it's no longer being accepted by the American people. But that's what he's afraid of, is that this is going to look like that white majority party beating up on two black guys. And boy, if that ever doesn't take you back to the bad old days. Well, I don't know what we do with people like Boehner, except hopefully get another speaker next year. And by the way, I have a candidate for that. Darrell Issa seems to be a guy who is very conservative. He's not flamboyant like a Bachmann, but he obviously has a backbone. He obviously knows how to run a meeting. And by the way, he's the wealthiest man in Congress. He made by himself over $300 million bucks. So it's a pretty impressive resume. And it seems to me that if he were the speaker, we would probably have some more serious dealings, even with ex-presidents and ex-attorneys general and ex-advisors to those individuals who have been named by whistleblowers as involved, both people in the White House and of course, beaucoup people in the Department of Justice.
We have some people saying, and I think you're the one that brought this up, that the concern is that we take away, quote unquote, the credibility of the entire United States law enforcement arm, everything under the Attorney General, under the Justice Department, and then you literally lay the groundwork for every case being prosecuted that has been prosecuted against anybody for anything by the federal government being now subject to possible reversal. Is that a real scenario?
I can see the argument about discrediting the federal government, which is something to be devoutly prayed for, that maybe we have finally come to a time when the federal government will be ridiculed, will be a byword, where the people will say, you work in the Department of Justice? Get out of my house. Get out of my town. I can see sheriffs doing that. We've discussed these feisty constitutional sheriffs who don't like unconstitutional things being done by the feds. I think this could put fuel in that fire of sheriffs standing up to the feds, because once they are so thoroughly discredited, and Lord willing, that's what we are looking at. Last Tuesday, when Darrell Issa held that public hearing and the members gave their speeches, and it kind of filled the American people in on, we're talking about 300 people murdered in a program engineered by our federal government so that the Mexican cartels could go shoot them up even more. And we know from one of the emails that was purloined by a whistleblower that the then head of the ATF on his weekly briefings would express pleasure at the increased murder rate and murder toll in Mexico. That's how vile these people are. They are evil. And when the American people saw that, it seems to me the half that hadn't ever heard about it, quite a few more had, because it was a big deal. It was in C-SPAN, and even the Democrat media covered it to a certain extent, and Fox covered it extensively. And Fox has about, I've heard, as much as a third of their viewers are liberals, because they're more interesting to watch than some of the others. So I think it became irreparable at that point. Darrell Issa absolutely broke the ice. The lake is now open, and anybody walking there is going to fall in. And the administration is, I think, falling in. Their time has come. And I very much agree with Dick Morris, who, for other reasons, very sound reasons, I think, of political mechanics, is predicting a landslide for Romney. Well, I don't think the landslide's going to be impeded by Fast and Furious revelations.
Well, I would agree with that. I still go back to, and let me turn to the chief here. If you get a judge, if you get a prosecutor, if you get a police officer who is bad or presumed to be bad or caught doing something bad, the ripple effect is substantial, is it not?
Yes, and the higher the officer's position is, the bigger the ripple.
And if you have a ripple coming from the Attorney General, and it's not him passing gas underwater, although he's been known to do that. If you have a ripple coming from the Attorney General, it seems to me that engulfs the entire federal law enforcement posture and positions and statements and veracity. Again, you know me. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think Holder comes just after diarrhea, and all excuses to diarrhea. But it is concerning to me that innumerable bad guys and gals, mostly guys, might be turned free, charges might be dismissed, cases might be overturned because of it. Not that I'm saying we shouldn't let the chips fall where they may, but I think that's a real concern.
Well, Stan, I think there would have to be a problem with the particular conviction and the process that took place. It might call for a review because, in my opinion, cases I've seen, the feds dealing with firearms, the prosecutors are willing to cut corners and to keep evidence out from the trial. In other words, to lie. And if that's the case, then, well, they should be reviewing these cases, and hopefully some of those people would be set loose. And then, of course, there's the more theoretical issue that almost everybody in a federal lockup on federal charges went there for a charge that the feds have no authority to make. So even if they're a bad guy and they're a drug dealer and they're out there killing people, the feds got to learn to leave these things at the state level where the Constitution put them.
Well, again, you'll get no argument from me. We talked about that situation where a woman's son was killed by an illegal, and then, yes, they sent the illegal to jail, which does nothing to help the woman or her circumstance or that man's other family members. And we find that, the existence of illegals in this country is because of a federal decision, going back to Bush, by the way, not to enforce our immigration laws. And then, if after the fact someone is punished, it doesn't mitigate that they wouldn't have been here to do that wrong if the laws had been enforced. You understand where I'm going here?
Right. And that just puts all the more impetus on the notion that we really have to get serious about the border. And I'm quite serious. I think one of the ways to do it would be to send a seasoned police force, aka ATF agents, and send them down to the border under the supervision of Border Patrol. And that would be an enormous increase in, it wouldn't quite be standing shoulder to shoulder, but they would be thick.
Well, hopefully that'll be the case. Now, the Supreme Court is coming out with the health decision Thursday because that's their last day. And
right.
They may be old, but they're not senile. They know that all hell is going to break loose no matter what the decision. They know what the decision is. But they want to announce the decision and exit via the back door and let anyone do what they want to do, but they're gone. That's very
right.
smart, frankly, on their part.
Yeah, they're not going to be giving many interviews. That's going to be in the domain of the politicians. And frankly, folks like us, we'll be talking about this and we'll be analyzing it and pointing out what was done well or poorly. So there will be a cascade of media attention. And good old John Boehner for putting that vote on Thursday on the Fast and Furious. That was really not a good thing. Let me just leave it at that.
Well, in some ways it was a very good thing. In some ways it was a very bad thing. He did it for all the wrong reasons because he's a wuss. But when you take away the Holder contempt charge from being the head story, you take away from the left's ability to play the race card and saying it was only done because he's a black man working for a black man who happened to be fathered by a black man, but we're not sure which black man. At any rate, having said all that, let's talk about the fact that they came up with another pretty significant decision, and that was the attempt via a Montana state law to end run the Citizens United case was defeated. That's very significant because everyone knows that as of right now, Romney and the Republicans are dramatically, did I say dramatically? Are dramatically outraising the Democrats.
And that is one of the many indicators that this election could very well finish off the Democrat Party. Liberalism is dead. The liberals that we have to deal with today are working from a dinosaur philosophy that's been rejected by the American people. We saw that in 2010, and I certainly think we're going to see a whole lot of it in 2012. So these are good times for those of us who believe in freedom and restoration of constitutional government. It's not going to happen all in 2012, but I really am hoping that we're going to make some progress to get back in the right direction.
Chief, when I see liberals celebrating liberalism, it reminds me of slaves celebrating slavery. I don't know, maybe that's wrong, but it kind of feels like that to me. But you're in the political game, seeing this kind of change of rules that are allowing the conservatives to stand up and be heard like the left has always done. They just did it illegally. Now that they've made it legal, the right's stepping up. Is that the way you see it?
Well, as far as what Larry said, I hope that he's right, but it's been my experience that liberals never quit. Whether they win or lose an issue, they are right back at it again with energy, money, and everything, while the other side of the aisle, which is normally the GOP, they win something, they take a break, or they're afraid to upset the left, and they do nothing at all. Now, I think the reason we're where we are today is because of the Tea Party. The Tea Party has come forward with action and an agenda that's really bolstered what's going on today. And so until the GOP gets off its duff, like Mr. Boehner, and decides that it's more important to stand up for the American people than to worry about what the left thinks about what they're doing, it's not going to go forward quickly. But we're on the right path. We have the right idea. We have the right momentum. It can be done.
Let me ask you
I
what
think
happened
there's
there.
going to be an energy gap, and I think the Exhibit A in that argument is what happened in Wisconsin. That was a blowout in more ways than one. Not only did Walker win by what otherwise, except by liberals and analyzing, it would be called a landslide, but it is a state that has, until recently, been characterized as kind of a purple state. It can go either way. Well, I don't think Wisconsin's going either way for some time. And if that energy was there, and I agree with Chief, in many cases, in spite of the Republican Party got an energy transplant from the Tea Party. And the Tea Party just is serious as a heart attack. They're not going anywhere. They are dug in, and I think that's what's going to carry the day in November, is that there's not only the money gap, which shows also enthusiasm among the donors there, and the big donors are looking at this thing and figuring, well, if I want to be on the winning side, I better be helping the pro-Romney PACs. And so I think whether you're looking at money, you're looking at the votes and the energy that was exhibited throughout that campaign and on election day, in Wisconsin, we've got a serious chance to take our country back, continuing in this battle this year.
Let me ask you about Texas. Did Cruz, is Cruz in the runoff there?
Cruz is in the runoff, and I may not have had a chance to tell you, but Steve Stockman, who above all conservative activists makes our heart go pitter-pat. This guy loves a fight. He loves to phrase things in an edgy fashion that is guaranteed to get Chris Matthews foaming at the mouth. Steve Stockman was in the Congress 15 years ago. They redistricted him out. He's competing in a district now that is a conservative Republican fortress. Only God would get him out of that seat if he were to win it. He made it into the runoff primary, number 2 spot, with $23,000. Now, that's pretty incredible. But then that's Steve Stockman. he knows how to campaign. And coming in number 2, as I've read about it and thought about it, is actually a good thing in a runoff, because number 1 has probably gotten all or most of all of the votes that he's going to get, and everybody else was voting for somebody else against him. And unless he's at 49% or something like that, he's just not going to win. And we're looking at a situation where the establishment candidate, a statewide official, was at about, I think it was 45%. Cruz had 35. There's an excellent chance that Cruz is going to pull that off, and we'll get another Tea Party senator.
Well, that would be great. By the way, you know Jessica Bradshaw, who you've met on this program many times, also made the runoff in her district. What was it, 41 or 27? 27. In Texas, 27. So put her on your prayer list and put her on your endorsement list, because the guy she beat, she came in second to, had, I think, 27%, and she had like 25%. So
What's her name again?
Jessica Bradshaw. You remember Jessica from this show?
Okay, very good. Yes, that's excellent news to think that an activist is on her way in. And that's very likely. I would say that's very encouraging news, and for the same reasons we were presenting for Stockman.
Well, and again, Jessica is a true pro-God, pro-gun, pro-family, proactive Tea Party conservative, and she's about 5'1.5" but she has mastered the art of the low blow, so don't mess with her.
Well, and she's got a lot of, she's like a laser, and she will be wonderful in office. That's very exciting.
All right, the spending limit deal we talked about. One last comment, and then just maybe a general thought about what's happening in Washington. According to the latest polling data, Romney is now tied or ahead in Michigan. Michigan is not a purple state. Michigan is a blue, royal pain in the butt blue state. And I cannot believe that Obama has a prayer of winning re-election if he's got to go and even campaign in Michigan, because he just put out an email saying to everyone, we're going to be outspent, we're behind. He may have said we're a horse is behind, I'm not sure. But anyway, and he said, we don't have the money to do our convention, so we're going to cut back on our convention. Is this true, or is this a head feint, or is God actually drilling holes in their bank account?
Can you spell blowout? As much money as Romney's making, as much money as Obama is not making. I heard today, I believe the convention needs minimum 23 million, and the unions are mad at Obama, and they're not going to give the money. Nobody has the money. So what kind of convention do you have when you start out going 23 million in the red? These guys can't spend money responsibly under any circumstances. They can't be trusted anywhere within 25 feet of the safe. These guys are accident ready to happen.
Well, on that wonderful note, we will thank you so much for your time and give folks the place to go to get your updates and stay in touch.
Gunowners.org on the web, and if you go to gunowners.org, you can sign up for the email alerts that we put out, among other things, telling you what's been happening. You would have known about Boehner being such a bad actor on Fast and Furious if you've been getting our email alerts, and you would have had a chance to fire off an email to your own congressman in polite words asking him to get a backbone when it comes to dealing with Boehner. So gunowners.org.
All right, thank you, Larry. Have a great day. I'm putting you in charge in Washington, D.C. I want only good news from now until the election, and even better news after the election is over.
Well, I hope you turn your hearing aid off then.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and we'll be right back, folks, with Major
Thanks,
General
Dan.
Jerry Curry. This is Talk to Solomon. Do you like like to eat. I do. We all run to the store if we're hungry, right? Well, there are times when that doesn't work. And for those times, and it may be for an hour, and it may be for a day, and it may be for a week, who knows, God's in charge, you need to have quality food. Alpine Air, that's what this is, quality food. It has extended shelf life, and it tastes great. You should store what you eat and eat what you store. Just go to cpnlive.com, click on the icon for the Alpine Air foods. It's incredibly reasonable. It's actually a way to save money. Alpine Air has quality food that's going to be there when you need it. It's always better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Alpine Air at cpnlive.com. Click on the icon and protect your family. You have a computer, if you're alive today, which means you have a hard drive, which means it's going to break down. Mosey, the backup people, for thousands, for Stan, for thousands of people, for tens of thousands of people, is simply common sense. You go to cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and sign up. It's just a few dollars a month. Let me tell you something. We had a break-in. They stole our whole computer. You know what? When they take the computer, you can't recover anything, but we had Mosey. We had the backup. We were able to restore everything simply by buying another computer. cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and give yourself common sense, peace of mind, great value, the best thing you've ever done. Sooner or later, it's going to be Mosey, the backup people. I am holding in my hand a product. It's called TR10 Supercolloidal Silver. It's a natural antibiotic that works. You know, the reason we use silver to make cutlery, silverware, is because nothing grows on silver. It's the reason they put it in your teeth. It's the reason they use silver instruments to operate on the brain. TR10 is very inexpensive. Just go to cpnlive.com, click on the icon for the TR10, and order a quart. It's so inexpensive, it's really silly. But it's invaluable when you have a sore throat, when you have a cold, when you have something you're concerned about in yourself, your child, whether you have to spray it in your eyes or swallow it or put it on your skin, makes no difference. It's totally safe. It has less silver than is the safe level in drinking water, yet it's done in such a way that it does the job. A natural antibiotic, yours, TR10, supercolloidal silver, from cpnlive.com. Just click on the icon.